So how do worms actually navigate through soil? And why is burying scraps directly such a bad idea? Let us find out. Think of it like underground Uber Eats. You place your food scraps in the restaurant, which is the worm tower. Earthworms are the delivery drivers. They pick up the raw materials, process them through their digestive system into premium fertilizer, and deliver the castings directly to your plant roots through an underground highway of tunnels. Completely automatic. Free. 24/7. Here is the science behind it. When food scraps start breaking down inside the tower, fungi and bacteria produce volatile organic compounds. Earthworms have incredibly sensitive chemoreceptors that detect these chemical signals, things like ethyl pentanoate, ethyl hexanoate, and carbon dioxide gradients. It works like a GPS, guiding them straight to the food source. Once they arrive, they eat, digest, and tunnel out through the drilled holes, depositing castings directly in your root zone. Those tunnels, called macropores, measure 2 to 11 millimeters wide and increase water infiltration by 47%. A single 5-millimeter tunnel can channel 27 liters of water per hour. If you are learning something new so far, hit subscribe. I share a smart gardening secret every week. Now let us compare this to the 3 alternatives most people consider. First, a traditional compost bin. It takes 3 to 12 months. You have to turn and mix regularly, maintain a carbon to nitrogen ratio between 20:1 and 40:1, and you need at least 1 square meter of space. It can smell if you get the ratio wrong. And for gardeners in their 40s to 70s and beyond, the physical labor is a real barrier. A worm tower solves all of this. No space needed, no smell, no labor. Second, buying worm castings at the store. $15 to $30 a bag, up to $50 for premium brands. But here is what most people do not realize. The enzyme dehydrogenase, which indicates living microbial activity, drops significantly after 30 to 60 days in a sealed bag. The microbes starve without root exudates to feed on. You are essentially buying dead fertilizer. The minerals are there, but the biological power is gone. A worm tower delivers fresh, living castings continuously. Third, and this is the #1 question from the comments, why not just dig a hole and bury scraps? Here is why that backfires. When raw food waste decomposes directly in soil, bacteria rush in to break it down and consume all the available nitrogen in the surrounding area. University extension services warn against planting anything near that zone for up to a year. On top of that, anaerobic decomposition underground creates odor and attracts rodents and raccoons that dig it back up. Without worms to pre-process the waste, it just sits there. Burying scraps without worms is like ordering food without a delivery driver. It just sits there and rots. A worm tower is not just composting. It is an automated biological delivery system. The science sounds great, but how do you actually build one? Pipe or bucket? What goes in, what does not? How long until results? Now here is what you have been waiting for. Exact measurements, both options, and precisely what goes in and what never goes in. Before we build, here is a non-negotiable safety note for anyone with pets or young children. Because this whole system goes underground and uses a tight-fitting lid, it is safe around dogs and kids. They cannot access the scraps, nothing spreads to the lawn or surface soil, and the system stays clean when maintained properly. You have two options. Both work great. I will give you exact specs for each. What if I told you this $8 pipe could replace most of the fertilizer you will ever buy? The average American gardener spends $616 a year on their yard, and 60% of their kitchen scraps end up in a landfill. The solution is literally under your feet. Long before bagged fertilizer became the norm, gardeners knew earthworms did the heavy lifting. Today, I will show you how to build an underground fertilizer factory in 10 minutes for under $8, and why Darwin wrote about this back in 1881. I will give you both options, pipe and bucket. Answer the #1 comment question, why not just dig a hole? And give you exact measurements plus a do and don't feeding list. But here is the big question. Why does burying scraps directly in your soil harm your plants, but burying them inside this system can dramatically boost growth? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly why. Here is what we are covering. First, why store-bought fertilizer and traditional composting may be wasting your money and your kitchen scraps. Second, how the worm highway actually works underground, and why compost bins, bagged castings, and just digging a hole all fall short. Third, exact build specs for both pipe and bucket, the feeding rules, timeline, and safety. All in about 10 minutes. Let us start with why. The National Gardening Association reported in 2023 that the average American household spends about $616 a year on gardening. That is up $74 from 2021. Fertilizer prices have surged 30 to 50%, and a single bag of worm castings at the store runs $15 to $30. Meanwhile, the EPA reported in 2023 that 59.84% of food waste goes straight to landfill. Only 4.99% gets composted, and food waste accounts for 58% of methane emissions from landfills. So, here is the situation. You are spending more every year on fertilizer while throwing away the raw materials to make something even better for free. And the science backs this up. A 2020 study in Applied Soil Ecology by Tuffer and colleagues found that sweet corn grown with vermicompost reached 8,003 kilograms per hectare. That was the highest yield compared to synthetic fertilizer plots. Aroncon and Edwards at Ohio State showed that strawberries grown with 10 tons of vermicompost per hectare produced significantly larger marketable fruit than those fed with standard synthetic fertilizer. But it goes deeper than yield. Ohio State researchers found that vermicompost contains exponentially more diverse microorganisms than regular compost. These microbes suppress plant diseases like Plectosporium, Verticillium, and Rhizoctonia. They produce plant hormones like auxins, gibberellins, and cytokinins that help plants resist insect damage. While synthetic fertilizer delivers quick nutrients, it does not include this living microbial workforce. That is what makes vermicompost different. Darwin himself wrote about this in 1881. He said, "Long before man existed, the land was in fact regularly ploughed, and still continues to be thus ploughed by earthworms." He estimated that earthworms move 15 tons of soil per acre per year. And worm castings contain roughly 5 times more nitrogen, 7 times more phosphorus, and 11 times more potassium than the surrounding soil. At the store, those castings cost $15 to $30 a bag. With a worm tower, your cost after setup is $0. Worm castings are not just cheaper, they are alive. That is the difference between living fertilizer and dead fertilizer. But how do worms know where to go? The answer is in the smell. Option 1. PVC pipe. Get a 6-inch diameter pipe. 4 inches is the minimum, but 6 is better. Cut it 18 to 24 inches long. Drill holes 3/8 to 1/2 inch wide using a spade bit, spaced about 1 to 1.5 inches apart, along the section that will be buried underground. This part is important. Sand down any sharp plastic edges so the worms do not get cut. Bury it so 2 to 3 inches stick above the soil surface, and put a tight-fitting lid on top. Option 2, and this is what I recommend. A 5-gallon food-grade bucket. Drill 3/8 inch holes through the bottom and all around the lower portion that will sit underground. Bury it so the rim sticks up 2 to 3 inches above the surface. This is critical because if the rim sits flush with the ground, rainwater floods in and can drown the worms. Use a tight-fitting lid. The bucket gives you more horizontal surface area than a pipe, which means more room for the worms to work. Total cost for either option? $2 to $8. Team pipe or team bucket? Let me know in the comments below. Now, what to feed and what to avoid. The top 3 best foods for your worm tower. First, high moisture fruits like watermelon and cantaloupe. They break down fast, provide moisture, and create an ideal environment for beneficial bacteria. Second, leafy greens and root peels like lettuce and carrot skins. They have a good carbon to nitrogen ratio. They are mineral rich and they do not swing the pH. Third, crushed eggshells mixed with used coffee grounds. The eggshells act as grit for the worm's gizzard and add calcium that helps neutralize acid. Coffee grounds provide a gentle nitrogen boost. And here are the top 3 things you should never put in. First, citrus fruits like oranges and lemons. The high acid content and a compound called delimonene can burn the worm's mucous membrane. Second, meat, bones, or dairy. They decompose anaerobically, create terrible odor, breed pathogens, and attract rodents like a magnet. Third, onions and garlic. The sulfur compounds in alliums actively repel earthworms. Here is your timeline. Add red wiggler worms, Icenia fetida, along with a layer of damp cardboard as bedding. Within a few days, you will notice the scraps sinking down as the worms get to work. Dense, harvestable castings, the kind that smell like fresh earth and crumble like coffee grounds, typically take about 3 to 6 months. If you are in USDA zones 5 through 10, spring, summer, and fall are optimal. In winter, the surrounding soil provides natural insulation. Add a thick layer of mulch on top, and the worms will burrow deeper to stay warm. 10 minutes to build, $2 to $8. Drop your scraps and walk away. That is it. So, what is the one thing you need to remember from all of this? Buying fertilizer can become an expensive cycle that never ends. Worm castings outperform synthetic fertilizer on yield, biology, and cost. Think of worms as your underground Uber Eats. Chemoreceptors guide them in, macropores are the highway, and castings land directly at the root zone. $2 to $8, 10 minutes, pipe or bucket, feed the right 3 scraps, wait 3 to 6 months, and you may never need to buy bagged fertilizer again. Now, let me answer the question from the very beginning. Why does burying scraps directly harm your plants, while this system works so well? Because soil bacteria steal all the nitrogen to break down raw waste. No worms means no pre-processing. A worm tower lets worms digest first, releasing nutrients in a form plants can absorb immediately. That is the difference between food delivery with a driver and food sitting on the sidewalk rotting. Don't be surprised when your neighbors start asking what expensive soil you bought. Build one this weekend. Snap a photo of your setup and drop it in the comments. Pipe or bucket, I want to see it. Every tower you build is one less bag of fertilizer you will ever need, and one less bag of kitchen scraps rotting in a landfill. Drop scraps, close the lid, walk away. And if you want to keep pests away from your new thriving plants, watch the video right next to this one. It is my favorite low-cost garden mix. Happy gardening!